They ask me why I still wake screaming, why after 40 years I cannot forget the man the Christians called Dracula. I was there. In 1462, I was part of Sultan Mehmed's army, 80,000 strong. We were the most powerful military force the world had ever seen. We had conquered Constantinople itself. One man nearly broke us. And the worst part, we understood why his own people loved him. I was 23 years old when we marched into Wallachia, a Janissary, one of the Sultan's elite. I had fought in a dozen campaigns, seen men die in every way imaginable, or so I thought. The orders were simple. Bring Vlad Dracula back to Constantinople in chains. He had stopped paying tribute, killed our ambassadors. The Sultan was displeased. We expected a quick campaign. Vlad had maybe 30,000 men, peasants mostly. We had cavalry, artillery, the finest soldiers in the world. What we didn't expect was that we weren't fighting an army. We were entering a vision of hell. It was June, 3 days into Wallachian territory. That's when the smell hit us. At first, we thought it was a battlefield, old corpses from some previous skirmish. But as we crested the hill, we called it the Forest of the Impaled. 20,000 bodies, maybe more, arranged in perfect geometric circles around the capital. Men, women, children, all on stakes. Some had been there for months. Others were fresh. Ottoman officials, tax collectors we'd sent the year before, still in their uniforms. The crows had taken their eyes, but we could still identify them by their rings. One of our commanders, Hamza Pasha, his own brother, was there. The stake had been carefully measured, just tall enough that he took 3 days to die. The Sultan's envoys, the ones Vlad killed for not removing their turbans. He'd impaled them with their turbans nailed to their heads. Because, he said, if they wished to keep their heads covered before God, he would help them honor their tradition. We made camp that night. 80,000 men, and you could hear a pin drop. Then at midnight, he came, Vlad himself, with maybe 10,000 men. They'd blackened their faces with ash, covered themselves in mud and blood. In the darkness, they looked like creatures risen from hell itself. The first scream came from the eastern edge of camp, then silence, then another scream from the west, then the north. They were surrounding us, but we couldn't see them. Our sentries started disappearing. One moment they'd be standing watch, the next, gone. No sound, no struggle, just vanished into the darkness. Then the real attack began. They came in waves, but not like any military assault I'd ever seen. They would materialize out of the shadows, attack a single tent with savage fury, then dissolve back into the night before anyone could respond. I was in my tent when I heard the screaming start moving closer. Men shouting, steel clashing, then that awful sound. Men dying, not in battle, but being slaughtered like animals. I grabbed my scimitar and rushed outside. What I saw, it wasn't warfare, it was hunting. Vlad's men moved through our camp like wolves through a flock of sheep. They knew exactly where they were going. The command tents, the officer quarters, the Sultan's personal guard. They weren't trying to win a battle. They were trying to decapitate our leadership. I saw one of them, a Wallachian fighter, smaller than me, covered in ash and blood. He moved with impossible speed. 3 of our Janissaries tried to stop him. He killed the first before the man could raise his sword, ducked under the second swing, and opened his throat. The third managed to wound him, but he just laughed, actually laughed, and kept fighting until he'd killed that one too. Then he vanished into the smoke and darkness. They were making animal sounds, wolf howls, bear roars, the screams of dying men mixed with sounds that weren't quite human. In the chaos and darkness, you couldn't tell what was real and what was psychological warfare. Fires started breaking out across the camp. Our own supply tents, our horses, everything burning. The smoke made it even harder to see, harder to breathe, harder to tell friend from enemy. And through it all, one name was being shouted by the attackers: Dracula, Dracula, over and over, like a war cry, like a curse, like a promise of death. I heard later what happened at the Sultan's tent. Vlad himself led that assault. He and maybe 20 of his best fighters cut through 60 elite guards. The Sultan's personal protectors, men who'd survived a dozen campaigns. They died without even slowing Vlad down. Mehmed was inside his tent when he heard his guards dying. One of his advisors looked outside and saw Vlad coming, not rushing, walking deliberately, through the bodies of the men sworn to protect the Sultan. They got Mehmed out through the back just in time, dressed him in a common soldier's cloak, and got him away into the darkness. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, running for his life like a common thief. When Vlad reached the empty tent, they say he laughed. Then he and his men disappeared back into the night. By dawn, it was over. They'd been in our camp for maybe 3 hours. We lost 4,000 men, but that number doesn't tell the real story. We'd lost our sense of invincibility, our courage, our certainty that we were the superior force. And when the sun rose, we found those 50 officers, impaled in a perfect circle around where the Sultan's tent had been. Some of them were men I'd eaten with the night before. Strong men, brave men, still alive when we found them. Some had been there for hours, still conscious, still aware, begging us to end it. That's when I understood. This wasn't about killing us. We had 80,000 men. We could afford to lose 4,000. This was about breaking us, making us afraid, making us question whether any amount of tribute was worth facing this man again. It worked. We retreated. The mighty Ottoman army. We retreated from one man, and on the march back, something strange happened. We captured some Wallachian peasants. For questioning, I was assigned to guard them. I asked them, expecting them to curse Vlad, to beg us to save them from this monster. Instead, they prayed for him. An old woman, she couldn't have been younger than 70. She told me this: before Vlad, Wallachia was a nightmare. Boyars, the nobles, they raped who they wanted, stole what they wanted. The Ottoman Empire took whatever we didn't steal. Her daughter had been taken by a Turkish tax collector, sold into slavery. Then Vlad came. He invited the corrupt boyars to a feast, hundreds of them, fed them, gave them wine. Then he asked, "How many princes have you served under?" Some boasted, 10, 15, 20. They'd betrayed and murdered their way through rulers for decades. Vlad had them all impaled that night, every single one. The old woman said, "For the first time in my life, I could leave a gold cup in the town square, and no one would steal it, because they knew the Impaler would find them." She said merchants traveled safely through Wallachia for the first time in a century, because bandits knew there was no negotiation, no bribery, just the stake. She said, "Your sultan takes our children for his armies. Your tax collectors rape our daughters. You call our prince a monster. We call him just. I never fought against Vlad again. I lived another 40 years, rose to command my own regiment. fought in campaigns across 3 continents. But I never forgot what she said. We invaded Wallachia to punish a rebellious vassal, to restore order, to bring civilization. But that old woman looked at me, at my uniform, my weapons, my sultan's banner, and she saw the monster. Vlad wasn't fighting a war. He was fighting extinction. The Ottomans to the east, the Hungarians to the west, both wanting to carve up his homeland like a feast. So he made himself into something so terrifying that even we, the conquerors of the world, would think twice. Did it work? For a while. We left Wallachia alone for years after that. The nightmares weren't worth the tribute. But eventually, we returned. And eventually, we won. Vlad died. Some say we killed him. Some say his own people did. It doesn't matter. Dead is dead. They ask me, was Vlad Dracula a monster? Yes, but so were we. The difference? He was a monster for his people. We were monsters for an empire. And I think, in his place, with my people dying around me, perhaps I would have done the same. That's what haunts me most. Not the forest of corpses, not the night attack, but the understanding that under the right circumstances, any of us could become Dracula.